Welcome to Let's Talk Better Forestry, a space for conversations about forests, the people who work with them, and the policies that shape them. We're here to slow things down a bit, to go beyond the headlines and hear from the people behind the work, in their own words. Honest, thoughtful, sometimes messy conversations, but always grounded in real experience.
Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Better Forestry podcast. I'm Morag Paterson from Forest Policy Group, and I am delighted to be joined here today by Jez Ralph from Evolving Forests. Jez, for people who don't know your work, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what your organisation is trying to change and achieve in forestry and timber?
Yeah, hi Morag. So I've been in forestry for probably about a rotation of spruce now. Um, I came from an archaeology background by way of mountaineering before that, but we're down in South Devon. My journey through forestry was via something called the Sylvanus Trust, looking at small woodland management. Worked for the Architectural Association, who have a forest campus. They're a big school of architecture, do a lot of innovative construction in the forest campus in Dorset, and I managed that. And eventually set up Evolving Forests about, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. And originally it was quite technical, testosterone fuel product development. It was like serious consultancy stuff. We did supply chain development for sawmills, innovation in product development, that kind of thing. And we still do a lot of that. But a few years ago, my colleague Kath Giles joined me, and the business sort of expanded to what it is now. And I suppose there's two sides of it. One side is the supply chain development work. We do a lot of brokerage. About 50% of our time probably is working with architects and about 50% with foresters. And then the other side of the business is media and media production. We do a lot of filmmaking for a whole range of people within the forestry and timber sector, podcasts, written word, photography, that kind of thing.
Fantastic, thank you. And I noticed you'd, I think one of the ways I kind of found you originally a few years ago was through this Evolving the Forest book. That grew out of a conference or an event. Am I right
Yeah,
in thinking that? Do you want to tell us a bit more
yeah.
about the process?
So I suppose the Evolving the Forest conference, I suppose it grew out of I don't know, a frustration about how siloed we are. Um, Not just as forestry, but even within forestry itself. I just wanted to have an event where policymakers could get drunk with scientists and artists and statisticians and philosophers. And we joined together with an organization for the Centre for Contemporary Arts in Natural World that are based sort of next door to us. And I think I honestly assumed no one would come. I, like we got all these speakers together in all these random and diverse areas of forestry for 3 days and 250 sessions, I think. Um, and we're absolutely blown away that we filled up and could have filled up twice over. And it was incredible. Um, yeah, we keep getting asked to run it again. But yeah, I think we made 50 pence out of it.
I can imagine. I can imagine. But I mean, it sounds like a wonderful idea and something we'd probably all very much enjoy up in Scotland as well, if you ever feel like doing
Do
it
you
again.
know, it's so worth doing, irrespective of what the sessions are, being able to socialize and interact with.
Hmm.
There's so many people in our sector you just never interact with.
Hmm.
How often does someone in the forest policy unit or DEFRA actually sit down, have a pint with a artist involved in sort of forest arts?
Mm. Yeah,
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 or
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I'm an artist in my actual day job, so I
right.
appreciate that.
Oh, you can do the
Um,
whole conference.
but it's so true, and I think there's that so much of that about is about finding common ground and where we have things in common as opposed to where we're different. And there really isn't enough of it going on, I don't think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, we sometimes forget we're all on the same side, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. The sector sometimes feels so polarized that we actually it escapes us that we're all actually probably working towards more or less the same thing. It just doesn't feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about the polarization? Do you think it's which direction do you think it's going in? Is the needle shifting in a positive direction or is it quite stuck or negative?
Um, oh, I just don't know. I mean, we very strongly advocate for centre ground, I suppose.
Hmm.
It's I like you have this sort of conservation extreme and this sort of commercial extreme, and our belief, however naive, is that they should both be one and the same thing.
Yeah.
A well-managed forest should encompass all of that. I think it depends. We're probably quite lucky down here in Devon, in the south, that a lot of people are moving towards systems that are silvicultural systems that are more towards the centre ground.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm sure it'll probably upset people. But I think you know, growing Sitka on no thin regimes is as bad as I think sort of restoration to whatever you think native is.
Hmm.
The actual ideal is something in between both of those.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what have you got? What is do you have a definite idea of what that should be? Should it be continuous cover forestry or a variety of different ways of working?
Oh, yeah. I mean, who knows? We're quite big advocates of continuous cover
Hmm.
forestry, but uh, I think it's more about holistic landscapes,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
and things like agroforestry systems has a place to in that. As does monoculture, but we'd prefer to see it in smaller coops. We prefer, large scale clear felling. I'm not sure is something we particularly advocate. But I am also very conscious that, you know, it's very easy for people to criticize what happened almost, sort of 50 to 100 years ago. So how did they think planting these monocultures was the right thing, blah, blah, blah. People could look back at what we do within continuous cover in 100 years and say exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
You know, we we don't know for sure. And so I suppose what we advocate for is our diversified systems
Yeah.
that have elements of everything. And maybe you don't get all the benefits of having a single system and investing in one focus, but it does feel more resilient.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think there's a difference? You're based in England, obviously, and I'm up in Scotland. Do you think there's a difference in how quickly England are moving towards trying different systems as opposed to in Scotland? Is that something you?
I mean, it feels like it.
Yeah.
Um, I know you're up in Galway, aren't you? Where
Hmm.
there's, surrounded by spruce, and it probably doesn't feel like there's much movement. Whereas here, most private owners are moving towards more. complex systems to
Hmm.
one degree or another. But it's different. I mean, we need all that timber, right?
Hmm.
We're importing
Yeah.
such huge amounts of timber. I can't pretend that if everyone converts to more complex systems, that, are we going to end up importing more?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I was going to ask you about the constraints and trade-offs that people face if we are trying to move away into more kind of like diverse systems and practices.
yeah, I mean, the trade-off is in investment, isn't it? It's that there's a financial constraint here. I can see how it's very attractive to grow spruce on a very short rotation. Um, but yeah, the 50-year forecast, production forecast came out the week we're recording this. I find it startling that overdue timber is timber that's over 30 centimeters in diameter. I mean, that's the length of a ruler.
Hmm.
Anything over that in diameter is considered overstood. Whereas where we are down south, I think most forest owners and mills would consider that not even at adolescence yet.
Yes. Yeah. And is
But you
that
have to be able to have a way of economically justifying growing to those longer rotations and
yeah.
more mixed rotations.
Yeah. Absolutely. And is that in a sawmill question as well? Are your mills down there more able to deal with the larger wood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we
Yeah.
would struggle if we had, well, I know, because when we're dealing with urban timber, for instance, anything below 30 centimeters, we have difficulty finding anyone to saw for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's just, it's kind of like the size that it should just be in a joinery workshop, not in a saw. It's like play size.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So is there much knowledge transfer as far as you know between sawmills up here and down in England, or are the markets just so different that that doesn't really happen?
I think, well, I mean, I don't know. The markets are so, I mean, the markets are different. If you're growing spruce up in the uplands, you are basically growing a commodity product.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about volume, isn't it? That is everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, volume growth, yield class, that kind of thing. Down here, I kind of feel like yield class isn't quite irrelevant, but it's not quite so important. We're after quality.
Right. Yeah.
Down here in Devon, we've probably got more Douglas fir than we do spruce,
Right.
for
Yeah. Hmm.
instance. We want, higher quality, lower volume timber is where we're at, really. And so the
Yeah.
sawmilling is also very different again. But we also, we're in a beautiful climate down here.
Hmm.
Devon, it's kind of wet and warm all year round.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
lush and vegetative, and we can grow a lot of different species, and there's a lot of potential. And we can grow complex, resilient systems because of that.
Hmm.
I do appreciate what a huge problem it is to think about how to move upland plantation into more complex systems.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a much bigger challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the trade-off between land for food production as well, which, is a big kind of tension up here as well.
Yeah.
But, we're going to have resilience problems up here too. We already do.
Mm,
So, yeah, it's trying to kind of work out the best way forward, I guess, and trying different.
yeah. But whilst investors are happy taking the risk on monoculture, no one's going to change, are they?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, a lot of people would argue that we don't have monocultures anymore because of the new UKFS, etc. But we're still talking about up to 65% of a single species, which over
I
large
mean,
areas can.
does it feel like you don't live in a monocultural area?
I couldn't possibly comment.
I mean, if I go up onto Dartmoor to the big spruce forest there, that feels pretty monocultural to me.
Yeah, I mean, here we have a lot of existing forest as well as all of the new forests going in. So,
Mm,
yeah, it's going to take time for it to change and to see whether, the restocks, do they look much different from the first forest? That's probably something that people would debate for quite a while, I would guess. But, I think we're both interested in ways forward as well, though, aren't we? So it's like trying to get past the kind of the criticism of one way of doing it or another and kind of thinking
yeah.
about how we can do things differently and all get a bit closer to the middle ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And we shouldn't forget that as a country, we've increased our forestry from 3%-ish to what, 17% in
Yeah.
100 years.
Mm.
That's pretty remarkable. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a staggering change in the landscape and the environment for the positive, no matter
Yeah.
what the timber type is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're 30% across Dumfries and Galloway as a whole, so there or
Mm.
thereabouts. More in our area, so
Mm.
it certainly is a large
Yeah.
amount of land cover.
I mean, if we could do the same in the next 100 years,
Yeah.
we, yeah, we'll be up to the same kind of forest cover as most European countries.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And there's the whole natural regeneration possibility as well. I mean, there's obviously a lot of seed stock in the ground when anywhere's left for a while to
Mm.
kind of regenerate too. So it's not all about the planting, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to go back to your the kind of a big part of your work's with design and construction, isn't it? Um, how much is that world shaping what's happening back in the forest? Like, which way is the influence going, would you say? Because we hear a lot up here about how we need to get more wood into construction, but there's roadblocks with the construction industry and how they classify timber, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think we put ourselves in a very specific position that
Hmm.
uh, certainly my belief is that forestry is where it is. You know, these big plantations are where they are and are what they are because we've been very much demand led.
Hmm.
The industry said we need a reserve of spruce or we need all this timber. You need to grow it for us. It's and it's sort of certainly 100 years ago within the modernist movement, it was it was part of imposing ourselves on the landscape to grow all this kind of stuff, and the demand was for timber. And yeah, what we've ended up with is a result of that. It feels to me, whether it's happening or not, that there has to be a moment that foresters stand up and say, well, we can't ethically carry on managing forests like that. It's not resilient. And we have to move to a more supply-led situation.
Hmm.
We will grow what is best for this land, this forest, what we think is most resilient. And we'll all have to work together to find the best way of using that resource, that
Hmm.
output from it.
Yeah.
And we quite strongly feel that's where we ought to be moving. And it feels in the very sort of niche little world we inhabit, certainly that there is a growing movement towards wanting to do that from the construction sector.
Right, right. And I was gonna, because that was another one of the questions I was going to ask is, um, what would our buildings look like if they were genuinely designed in response to sort of healthier, diverse forests, if we flipped it round the other way?
I think in some respects, they'd look much the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the species that are in them might be different and more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
There might be nuances about how we build with different species with different properties.
Mm-hmm.
It might be, though, that if we were to say what's best for our forests is more complex silviculture that has lower volume outputs, we have to put aside the idea of using cross-laminated timber as a building material because it's an incredibly high volume material to use.
Hmm.
Yeah. We can build much lighter weight with less timber. And so it's almost really a question for engineers
Yeah.
to work with architects at one side and foresters on the other to explore what are the best building systems for the
Hmm.
proposed future output.
Yes, yeah, and I guess thinking about the chicken and egg, not letting what we've got now lead what we want for the future, I suppose, as well. Not saying that's our fundamental starting place. Um, I mean, we
Yes,
have to
but
an
also
extent.
not wanting to reinvent wheels as well, I guess,
No,
because what's in the ground is what's in the ground now
yeah,
is in the ground. There's a 20 or 30-year lead in time minimum.
yeah. There's a
So
transition.
so there's one case of saying we need to innovate within the context of what we have,
Hmm.
and another is do we need to start innovating now in the context of what we think forests might hold 50 years in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that's happening? Because I think, I don't know, this might just be my personal opinion, but we are quite short-termist in the way that we're approaching forest policy in some ways. And do you think enough people are sitting around the table innovating for so that we start planting now what we think we're going to need in 34 years' time,
Well,
rather than just thinking more of the same?
I'm saying we shouldn't plant what we think we're going to need in 50
Okay.
years' time.
Hmm.
I think we should be planting what the forest needs in
Yes.
50 years'
Okay.
time, which I appreciate probably sounds very hippie, but we are right on the edge of Totnes. Um, but we can't just carry on planting what we think there's a market for. We have to, the climate's changing so fast
Hmm.
and society and technology are changing so fast, we can't possibly know what that demand is. All we can do is what we think is best. What is the best approach to silviculture that leaves the forest in the best condition for our great grandkids?
Right. Yeah.
That has to be the first question. And then the second question is what is the output of that going to be? And let's work within the innovation sector to understand how we use that best.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely agree on the we can't see 30 to 40 years in the future. You know, we've got with AI and 3D printing,
Mm.
there's just so much possibility of the way technology is going to move, isn't it, in terms of
Yeah.
what we need.
But you're right though, policy is generally very short. I mean, what we kind of need is for someone to write a very generic forest policy and then
Hmm.
just get out of our hair for 50 years.
Right, right. That's a suggestion someone might want to pick up who's listening. It'd be good if they did. See what you're basically saying is treat the forest as the ecosystem that it is, do the best that we can for it, and let the other things evolve
Yeah.
alongside that, rather than you thinking of it purely in terms of a human extractive kind of perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, yes, but with a nod to quite, there has to be some focus on growing timber.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
silviculture, the species decisions, that kind of thing have to account for a number of things.
Yeah.
What's best, you know, if the priority factor is what's best for the forest, perhaps like the next factor is down, what is going to provide the best timber for our needs,
Yes. Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess a lot of people would argue that a well sort of thinned managed silvicultural system would be naturally growing very strong, good quality timber in many circumstances, with all conditions being favourable.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but there are factors like things like high pruning, for instance.
Yeah.
There are interventions you would probably want to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we,
Absolutely.
we can increase, if we can increase the stiffness of timber
Hmm.
through. good thinning and natural regen practices and
Hmm.
selection, then why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hmm. And I guess I'm just thinking about this, in terms of labour resources versus mechanisation as well. Is that having quite an impact on how we're managing our forests? Because in
Well,
one way, we want more jobs from forests all the time, and on the other hand, we want efficiency and profit. So,
yeah, tricky, isn't it?
mm,
I mean, our office is here on the Dartington estate, and Dartington estate used to have three sawmills and 30 foresters.
hmm,
And that's not including the School of Forestry that was here, or the furniture production, the housing production, and the building renovation works that it did with all its own timber. And now there's a contractor in that's been in for a few weeks with two guys, probably doing the same as those 30 guys did.
hmm,
Um, and yeah, we're quite embedded in technology.
yeah,
All of our we do quite a lot of inventory work. It's all digital now. It's all LiDAR scanning based. Um, we do quite a lot with robotics and 3D scanning at Hook Park, and that believe that is the way forward. And then there's a sentimentalist side that believes that actually it feels wrong to completely lose the craft of silviculture and of making. It
hmm,
feels like you have to know that craft to be able to use those digital tools responsibly,
hmm,
maybe. But we were out a while ago with someone who was looking to invest in forestry and had made money in AI development. And we were in a forest and saying, look, the thing about silviculture is that the forester here has been here for 30 years. And he's kind of known that oak grows well there, but not there, even though it's on the same soils and the same aspect. And you need that kind of silviculturalist to stay in these positions, because otherwise, you know, you don't know that and you can't manage the forest well. Okay, he pointed out, but of course, that there is a data-centered reason why oak will grow there and not there. You
hmm.
just don't know it yet.
Yeah, fair enough. So, so can you see a future, so without sort of trying to bring back the past, where we do have many more people working in the forest, and maybe not even just people from a silvicultural perspective or a harvesting or processing, but people running all sorts of other kind of businesses around the woods and living in the woods again?
No, I
No,
mean,
you just don't see
well,
it.
I mean that's a very crude answer. Yes, I mean I can see a point where the forests offer a lot more to the community.
Hmm.
Um, I can see in Scotland where there is a very valid and compelling case for forest crofting, for
Hmm.
instance. And
Yeah.
having met a few on Mull, it seems a really natural way of managing areas and being involved in areas of forest.
Hmm.
Um, on the other hand, in England, where we're so overpopulated, it worries me opening the doors to a precedent of people living in the woods.
Right. Yeah.
If one person can, why can't everyone?
Yeah.
It does, it, yeah. Do we want our woods just filled with houses?
Yeah. 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 No, it's a good point. We don't want them to become development zones and then sort of incrementally just actually disappear again. So,
Yeah.
so with careful policy, and it could. The crafting one's an interesting one.
I mean, yes, yes, I find the forest crofting thing genuinely interesting, and it
Hmm.
feels like it works. There's enough land, there's a small enough population, there's enough forest
Hmm.
for that to work. And the idea, for instance, of having a forest crofter running a small nursery in a forest
Yeah.
is pretty bloody compelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And it's
just,
something we should do a whole episode on actually. It's just kind
yeah,
of like
yeah,
woodland crofts and also wood lots as well, which is a,
yeah,
slight
yeah.
variant on the model.
But but in England, effectively, everywhere is peri-urban.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure the model fits as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sort of slightly different beast down there, population versus land availability, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so I guess what else were we going to talk about? Um, Thinking about, I suppose, if we're wanting to accelerate change in some of the way that we're dealing with forests, some of the ways we've touched on, whether that's construction or diversification or management, where do you think the most effective pressure points would be? Whether is it the policy, is it the markets, is it cultural, something else entirely?
Yeah. I was thinking about this before. Yeah, I think first of all we have to address what we think accelerate is. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you look down here, the move towards more complex silvicultural systems is happening really fast,
Mm-hmm.
just not in the context of a society that thinks that 3.5 minutes is a long form YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a real tension that certainly I feel between the what is a fast pace of change in forestry and what is a fast pace of change in climate and technology and
Mm-hmm.
society. And that's, I find, really worrying. As
Yeah.
fast as we accelerate is potentially not fast enough.
Yes. Yeah.
That worries me. But where are those effective pressure points in change? Um, I think it's in I think it's in markets and it's in young professionals. I
Yeah.
think
Mm-hmm.
if if um, if I was to pick one target demographic, it would be young professional foresters and architects and designers
Right.
that are
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
levers of change, the people that, quite frankly, give a shit about
Mm-hmm.
climate,
Yeah.
and they're the people who have an incentive because they're young in their career
Mm-hmm.
to make change happen. And I'd like to think they're the people that can influence the senior management or senior civil servants
Yeah.
to make
Mm-hmm.
change happen.
Yep. Yep. It's a good
Um,
point. And hopefully enough places for those two groups to interact as well along the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think
And
markets are important as well. Yeah, there has to be market drivers,
yeah.
but they increasingly have to be driven by demand-led or supply-led practices.
Yeah. Yeah. And then because you said you already feel like it's accelerated quite rapidly in forest terms down in England, what's driven that, if you haven't already sort of covered it?
What has driven that? I don't, hmm, I don't know. Um,
Yeah, no, it's fine, to
yeah,
not know as well,
no,
because it'd be interesting to look at, wouldn't it? And just sort of
yeah.
rewind the clock a bit and say what have actually been the levers or the key points that have driven this.
I mean, certainly down in Devon, there's a very long history of forest innovation
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that continues on. Um, and there's a website called Fourth Door Review by an architectural critic called Oliver Lowenstein,
Mm-hmm.
within which we've put a series of articles about the innovation in forestry and timber use in Devon over the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to look at how that's happened.
Yeah.
Uh,
We could link to that in
yeah,
the underneath the podcast if that would be.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Be interested to hear.
but I don't know I suppose there's an element of ownership. I think at the risk of being slightly unpopular, there's a lot of estates down here that are in long-term family ownership that
Yeah.
have the ability to take long-term decisions.
Yes, and the
If,
continuity.
yeah, if
Yeah.
you're not particularly worried about this year's cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
if your cash flow is based on decisions your great-grandparents made, you
Mm-hmm.
have a much better ability to make decisions for your great-grandchildren.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And technically, or I'm thinking this off the top of my head, that should translate to the public forest also, shouldn't it?
No. Well,
No.
it should do. Well, I mean, it should do, yeah, but it doesn't, does it? I mean,
But it could.
who,
It could. There could be lessons from there.
well, I think it's genuinely, I genuinely struggle with knowing that there is a need for a different ownership model that can take those kind of long-term decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just don't know. I have absolutely no idea what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So that's all good material that people could be, putting effort into thinking about, isn't it? And testing and trying, I guess. I know you need to get off quite soon, so I'm going to ask you your last question, which came in from McNab Laurie from the last podcast. He asks, it's 2060 and you're sitting at your kitchen table. You can send one message back to the UK forestry sector in 2026. What would your message be?
Do I get to ask a difficult question of the next person?
Absolutely, 100%.
Fantastic.
But don't do it on air.
The message I would send is stand up for ourselves and the forests that we are responsible for.
Yeah,
Now is a moment where we can be really bullish about who we are and stand up and say, we are going to manage the forests in a way we think is best for the forest, not necessarily best for the markets.
yeah.
And we have a duty to do that. Do it. Just do it.
Grand. Excellent. Well, what a brilliant point to finish on. A huge thank you for joining us. We'll try and
Thank
get
you.
the links into the show notes. Anything else you want, you think would be helpful to point people towards, feel free to drop us that over and we'll get it included. And thanks to everyone for listening. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you would like to stay up to date when the next podcast comes out. Okay, thanks again, Jeremy. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If something sparked a thought, a memory, or a bit of healthy friction, that's what we're here for. If you'd like to be part of a future conversation, please drop us a line. You can sign up to Forest Policy Group or support the work we do with a donation. It all helps to keep things moving forward. Until next time, take care.